welcome to the Spawn Chunks, episode number 91 for Monday, June 1st, 2020. My name is Johnny, but the internet knows me as Pixel Riffs, and joining me, as always, is Joel Duggan. Hi, Joel.
I am here. I am back from the past and the future. If you'd like to hear about Back to the Future, a movie trilogy that I very much enjoy, as well as some D&D adventures, then you should listen to the Render Distance, which is the extended version of the podcast that we do for our patrons. You can get that at patreon.com/thespawnchunks. Johnny, what have you been up to this week?
Oh boy, what have I been up to? A lot of Minecraft Dungeons, which is going to be the main topic of discussion for this week, so we're going to be covering a little bit about it in the news, but we're going to be saving a lot of that stuff for later on in the show. As you've probably seen from the title and the thumbnail, we are going to be getting into Minecraft Dungeons, and I have been doing a lot in that game, but I've also still been popping into core Minecraft here and there to work on my jungle temple, which I think I mentioned last week. I was rebuilding a jungle temple and kind of restyling it to look more like a ziggurat or a Mayan pyramid. So I've been working on that. I'm working on the interior right now. This week I'm going to be building some traps and stuff in there. And I also decided to do a little bit of stuff on stream with my trading hall, because playing Skyblock has reminded me how valuable clerics' trades are, and being able to get a renewable source of redstone without having to go mining for it or AFK at a witch farm, which lately I find myself just really being against the idea of AFKing for resources, mainly because I'm using my computer for other stuff all the time. So leaving Minecraft open seems kind of annoying to me. But I decided to recruit a bunch of clerics, which ultimately means zombifying them a few more times so their trade prices are better. But now having somebody to trade rotten flesh to and gold, as well as buy redstone and glowstone and lapis and so many of the important things clerics have, is a worthwhile thing to have. How about you, Joel? What have you been up to this week?
So I actually have been pretty much exclusively streaming Dungeons, which has been a chill and fun, honestly, a nice break from trying to figure out what to build next in Minecraft.
Yes, same, actually. I found it very refreshing playing something a little bit different, but still Minecraft themed.
Minecraft themed, same universe, same kind of visual aesthetic, but obviously very pretty with all the lighting and stuff. But I do find that I'm hitting, which I think you've mentioned before in the show, that 1:16 stall.
Yes.
I have some ideas. I have some things I want to try, but it's like, well, maybe I should just wait until all this stuff happens, because I've wanted to add some villagers and do some trading to the city, so I don't have to grind as many blocks. Exactly what you're talking about, taking advantage of the village trades. There's changes.
Yeah.
to how that works now. So I kind of feel like I want to wait. So what I did do in game, which was off stream, and it's one of those mornings where I didn't sleep that well, and I wanted something chill to do to kind of warm up my brain. And I had started this squid farm. Actually, that's a lie. I think I did stream this. See, this is what the week has been like. So I finished off the squid farm, which is like a temporary, only made it so big squid farm. And then that's right, I did that on stream, and then off stream I connected it to the main storage system under the bank. So
yeah.
Me and my water streams, I like being able to make things move around, and turns out that it really wasn't that far, because the bank looks really far from the squid farm, but the bank basement is much larger than the actual bank building on the top. Like it's a much bigger system. So getting the water streams and stuff together was fun. It was a short tunnel. It wasn't like it was hours and hours. I think it took me an hour and a half just to kind of go in there, play for, have an extra cup of coffee and just kind of mess around. And it dawned on me that my storage system under the bank is a combination of traditional kind of like no overflow filters and manual sorting. However, because of the aesthetic of how I laid it out and how I wanted it to all work, I ended up leaving spaces between every row of chests. So it's not like it's double chests all lined up next to each other. They're spaced out. And what I really like about that is if you get something like, ink sacks that you then have to fit in to an existing system that weren't considered when you built the system, you have the room to add the filter.
Yeah.
And what I like so much about this is that I don't have to add the extra chests. I'm now putting two filters going into one chest tower, if that makes any sense. So it means that I can do all of my manual dye storage in one column and then insert the ink sacks into the bottom and
Yeah.
just have bulk of some and manual of others. And as much as I really like the idea of having a really cool multi-item sorter thing, and I've seen some stuff online lately that I'm just drooling over, but it's a lot of work. Uh, I'm sort of liking this idea of this hybrid system of like some of it's manual, some of it's bulk, some of it's just sorting out things as you need. But the real win of the whole situation is the fact that I'm inserting filters into a system that allows for expansion, which I thought really kind of worked out in my benefit.
Yeah, I'm very much in favor of the idea of bulk storage for a lot of things and very small storage for other things. Like, I always put out, like, a few double chests for a bunch of stuff and then realized that, hey, I'm not actually collecting a whole bunch of purple blocks or something like that, whereas my cobblestone storage is overflowing into the 3 chests either side because I have so much of this stuff. And it ultimately comes down to what you're using the most, and the stuff that you're able to stockpile more easily, the stuff that you're able to farm in large quantities and that kind of thing. So it's it's something that I'm going to revisit when I build this museum, because I'll need to have a lot of storage in that for the building blocks that are going to shape the building itself, and also the stuff that's going to be stored for display when I get around to that. But then I'm looking at that going, how exactly do I want to store all of this stuff? How am I going to arrange any of this? And does the storage system then become an exhibit in the museum itself? Like, at what point does it just get incorporated into that? So a lot of thinking going into that project right now as well. But yeah, sounds like you've at least got some things you can tinker away with until the 1.16 stall is over. And who knows, like, inspiration might strike in the meantime, because looking at the environments from dungeons, that's been kind of interesting and inspirational to me. Especially the desert temple level having traps in it. I'm like, oh, I can try and take some inspiration for those for traps in this jungle temple I'm working on. We'll see. But you mentioned the villager changes as something you're waiting for in 1.16, so we should probably head straight into the news and talk about the latest snapshot. This was a bit of a delayed snapshot, actually, because they didn't put it out on Wednesday. It came out on Friday, I believe, so kind of later than usual, and everybody was playing Dungeons at the time, so I feel like maybe delaying it into a few days later in the week made a little bit more sense. But this is Java Edition Snapshot 20W22A, which we have a full changelog available, of course, on Minecraft.net, linked in the show notes if you want to go and see that, and the details of some experimental rendering changes may interest some of you. They have pointed out that it might cause issues with some different graphics cards, so bear that in mind. But aside from those, piglins will now sometimes dance in celebration when they successfully complete a hoglin hunt. Bells can be hung from the underside of more blocks. When a villager that was traded with is struck by lightning, the witch it converts into will no longer despawn. Not that you can convert it back, but you just have a ton of witches hanging around. Players can no longer mount another entity when the crouch key is held down, so no more confusion about getting into minecarts. The villager workstation logic changes that Joel hinted at are actually really great. There's a bunch of them here, which I'll list quickly. Villagers will no longer try to work at the same workstation. The most experienced nearby villager for the profession corresponding to the workstation you add will get the workstation. So the cleric who is like a master level is going to get the workstation over a cleric who is still only a novice. Villagers now have to walk to and reach the workstation before they can acquire the profession and work there, so no more villagers claiming professions through walls. Villagers can no longer claim workstations and professions during nighttime or during raids. Villagers will check and make sure their workstation is valid at all times of day, as long as they're within 16 blocks of the workstation. There are a handful of other technical changes and bug fixes. There's more information about most of those on Minecraft.net, and of note, there are a few fixed bugs here, including zombie reinforcements being able to spawn on glass. That has been fixed. Good news for zombie pigman farms there. Bees inside a nest or hive not growing up or getting their breeding timer reset. Light not propagating across chunk borders properly, which I think has been an issue for a while, so it's good that that one's getting fixed. And soul campfire not dealing twice the amount of damage as a normal campfire. I'm not entirely certain about that one. I didn't realize soulfire did more damage, because...
Yeah, it's twice.
That's interesting, because I maybe that sort of passed me by in previous changelogs, but I remember Soulfire being added and it didn't do any damage at first. It didn't destroy items or anything. It was just aesthetic when it first got added with the biomes. But I guess now it does twice the amount of damage. That's really interesting.
Yeah, so the bug was that it wasn't destroying items, like it wasn't acting as fire should. And then when they fixed it, they also said, they also added this other thing. Oh, by the way, it wasn't doing any damage, and it was supposed to do twice the damage.
It's supposed to be more dangerous than regular fire.
And that got looked over because the big change was like, well, now it destroys items. Because the cool thing was that people thought it wasn't going to destroy items because it means that you could farm stuff with fire, have it kill the mob, but have the item not be destroyed in the flames.
Right, yeah.
But obviously it's changed. But yeah, so like if you've got, I know that you did, I think it was campfires in your Iron Golem farm.
Yes.
So you could change those to soul campfires
and have the damage deal twice as fast. That's very interesting. I wonder how often that'll get used, because campfires are actually a really good block for mob farms like that. They are non-solid, so that items can travel through them to hoppers. And aside from the particles, they're actually a pretty friendly resource to get. You don't need a huge amount to get them. With Soulfire, I guess you just need Soulfire torches or Soul Soil to go in there or something. So I
think it's Soul Soil. I think you replace the coal with Soul Soil.
Yeah, that's not too bad then. I will see what we can do about that. Might be an innovation that I can bring to my Skyblock Let's Play at some point.
If you were under a rock, then you might have missed the fact that Minecraft Dungeons launched this past Tuesday. We now have a live game. You can get that at Minecraft.net. You can purchase it for PC by following the link on your Minecraft launcher to the Microsoft Store. In the Microsoft Store, you can also get it there for Xbox. It's worth noting that if you'd like to try Minecraft Dungeons and you're not sure about it, well, one, there's a whole lot of people streaming it, so you can kind of check it out that way. But also, it's part of Xbox Game Pass. Also, Xbox Game Pass for PC, which is in beta, and also pretty cheap right now. So if you're looking to try Minecraft Dungeons and you're on the fence about it, you can do so if you have access to the Game Pass, because it's just a subscription, and right now I think it's $1 US a month. It will eventually go up. Obviously, check with other people before you sign up for that. But I thought that was fantastic that you have this brand new game that day and date is also available on this subscription idea. I think it's just fantastic.
Yeah, and considering Minecraft is like a first-party Microsoft property now, it makes sense, but it's going to be a big part of their offering going forward, I think. And I think regular Minecraft is also on Xbox Game Pass, I believe. Or it was at a certain time. I'm not sure if it still is. But super cool. Minecraft Dungeons, we haven't put this in the show notes, so I thought I would add it here, is also available on PS4 and on Nintendo Switch. And I don't believe there's any kind of it's not on PlayStation Now or PlayStation Plus or whatever the kind of free games cycle is for the sort of membership thing for PlayStation. But yes, not available for Mac or Linux right now, and also not available on mobile devices. Because I presume there's just a lot of too many controls for it to be played on, an iPad or something like that. But as far as a console offering and a PC offering, it is available on all of the most modern platforms, I guess.
And I don't think I knew that it was available for Switch. I thought it was coming, but I didn't know it was available now. That's great.
Yeah, I think it launched day and date with all of the other versions. Yeah.
Cool. Dungeons DLC have been revealed. Holy smoke, that was fast. The first DLC, Jungle Awakens, is coming in July. In this adventure, you will enter a distant, dangerous jungle to fight mysterious powers in 3 new missions. To defeat the terrors hidden among the vines, you'll have new weapons, armor, and artifacts at your disposal. The second DLC, Creeping Winter, is due later this year. Team is also working on cross-platform play functionality, cool new free content for Minecraft Dungeons that everyone will be able to receive regardless of edition. We'll come back with more details in the coming weeks. This was another from an article on Minecraft.net.
Yes, and the last piece of news related to Minecraft Dungeons here is that they have released a limited edition clothing line by Cloak and a hardback strategy guide. So there is even some Minecraft Dungeons merch out there for those of you guys who are into collecting some physical stuff. Let's start with the snapshot, which feels like a while ago now because all of the Minecraft Dungeons news. But let's talk about these villager changes. Let's talk about, bells being able to be hung from the underside of more blocks. That harks back to the lantern debate, I know, but it's cool that there are a few more options there.
Yeah, I agree. Something I like about the bell is that you can attach it to the side of things.
Yeah.
And so you can have it, if you wanted to have the bell look like it's part of a shop, like a medieval signpost or something like that, then it attaches in a very fun way to the sides of blocks. Whereas if you put it on the ground, it has like 2 prongs. Sides of blocks, it has 1 horizontal, support, and then now underneath things, it just kind of hangs straight down.
Yeah.
I kind of wonder if these all line up. I saw a video where they went through a number of things like hoppers and fences and all the different things that you can connect it to. The things you cannot connect it to make sense, like you can't connect it to the bottom of a bed, things like that. But the thing that I'm wondering is that if it lines up now with chains and lanterns, and now the bell can all roughly be hung from the same sort of stuff. I know that chains can be waterlogged, but if I'm not mistaken, bells, because they're a redstone component, get washed away with water.
Yeah, it might be the case. At least it seems to be becoming more consistent if they're working with those as all being things that act a certain way when they are hanging from specific blocks and that kind of thing. Like if what's good for one thing is good for the other thing, then that becomes more intuitive to players, which is great. Yeah. Let's see what else we got here. The villager workstation changes I am 100% on board with. That sounds like it's going to make trading halls much more consistent and no longer the stuff of nightmares. Because right now, if you have 2 villagers with workstations opposite each other and it's the same workstation, then sometimes they can work at the one that's in front of them. Sometimes they want to trade places and work at the workstation that they can see across from them. And if you have traders in booths, which a lot of people want to do to keep their trading halls neat and organized and, have a sign above a villager to say what they trade, very difficult to do that when they want to walk around and then they can't refresh their trades because they're not attached to the right workstation. So these rules kind of streamline everything to the point where villager behavior should be a lot more predictable. And I love the fact that the most experienced villager gets to claim the workstation, because naturally,
I was just about to say that, yeah.
You want to have them be the ones that refresh their trades most often because they're the guys you've already traded with. So, you don't want the one villager who's only got a couple of, early game farming trades to refresh their trades when you're after the farmer who can sell you golden carrots already,
Yeah.
So that's great, and mad props to the team who've been working on those changes, because villager logic has been going under changes since it was released in 1.14 to try and get these guys to do what they want them to do, and I hope that this is one of the last things we have to see from this, because they should be a lot more logical at this point.
And I'm wondering if the new villager workstation mechanics will make it easier to get villagers to move around, rather than pushing a villager those last handful of blocks, which can be very frustrating. We all know you can move things around with minecarts and boats and stuff, but usually that fine tuning, that last few blocks, has to be kind of like this constant headbutt of trying to get the villager around and in the right spot. But perhaps similar to being able to coax a zombie across, an empty space, using a profession block as bait to bring a villager, preferably one that doesn't have a profession, I would imagine. But also, even if it does, if it's the right kind of block and they're looking, it's like, hey, I'm a librarian and you've just taken my workstation. If you place that down, if that would basically reliably mean that they would then walk over to that workstation at a regular clip, it does kind of make me wonder if the redstone geniuses out there, the combinations of sticky pistons with profession blocks attached to them in a long hallway, I kind of wonder if you could just like breadcrumb a villager over a long distance.
It might be possible, and especially if they have to walk to it and reach it now, instead of just, adopting a workstation from several blocks away through various objects and that kind of thing. I think that may be more possible, and it's going to be interesting to see how trading halls adapt to these changes in future. The rest of the snapshot is looking pretty normal. I do like the fact that bees now grow up when they're inside hives. That was my initial problem with bees, was that you had to make sure that they were out of the hives so that they could grow up and then be able to breed. Whereas now, if they are continuing to age when they're inside the hive, then you don't run into that problem. You don't have to block the hives off when they're, out and flying around and collecting honey, going back in at night, that kind of thing. So that's
speeds things up a little bit more time efficient for players. Just kind of feels a little bit more natural, and I think makes more logic sense than the way that it was happening before.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the zombie reinforcements not spawning on glass, because that's going to help me fix the gold farm on the Citadel. We currently have an issue where zombies will spawn on the ceiling of the gold farm because it's far enough away from the lava despite it being glass, we just end up with this horde of zombies hovering around the player in the center because it's one of those giant donut farms. But we built it in the Nether, not on the roof.
Yeah.
And so we have a glass floor on the bottom of it, which is great because it's above lava, which means the light level is always well above 9. But the issue is that, of course, the ceiling isn't, and I'm looking forward to having a cleaner gold farm again, because I think we're going to have to make some changes because there's going to be some piglins spawning in there too. But I think we just have to take some stuff out for magma blocks, and we should be able to get back to normal. But yeah, it's going to be an interesting an interesting conversion. I'm actually looking forward to it. It's going to be some fun technical changes. But the fact that you don't have to worry about the reinforcements of zombies on glass now, I think it's going to be great.
Yeah, super great change. What are you thinking about the Dungeons DLC? Because we can't really talk about that in the main discussion since it is not out yet. But the themes they have gone with seem pretty different from what they've already got in the game, which I think is great for me. They're bringing in other biomes like the jungle and some sort of winter biome. I assume that's going to be coming out around like Christmas holiday sort of time, like around the end of the year.
Probably, yeah.
But Jungle Awakens is coming in July,
which is fast.
Yeah.
And in my head, we don't know when 1.16 is going to come out, but end of June, early July is generally when we've seen, Minecraft updates, sometimes as late as August. So to have the DLC for Dungeons come in the same month as 1.16, I thought was odd. I'm not complaining because I think it's great that it's happening so soon.
Yeah.
I had purchased the Hero Edition and just leaned back and thought, yep, it'll be September or Christmas before we get an expansion. And that's fine. There seems to be plenty to do in this game until then. And so July is quick. The screenshots that they have in the article look fantastic. I love the look of this vine tree monster golem thing.
Yeah, you seem to have like carnivorous plants as enemies, which is something we've never seen in Minecraft before. Please add those to jungles.
Man, I love me some Plants vs Zombies. So
Yeah.
if you want to do Plants vs Zombies / Diablo / Minecraft Dungeons, I am on board.
Plants and Zombies versus you, I think, is the Plants and Zombies team up at long last. But yeah, no, I think Jungle Awakens looks really cool and is probably going to be a nice addition to the game for people who, I mean, you said you're quite happy with the length of it right now. I think some people were actually kind of dissatisfied with the length of it, considering that you can, if you run through it super fast and don't explore the levels super heavily, you can complete the main story in 5 to 6 hours. So I think some people were disappointed with that and wanted more from the storyline of the game. And it seems like this might add a light story, kind of like the main game has, but with the jungle theme. And considering how much other stuff this points to in terms of other directions they could go with future DLC, this hasn't even touched on the Nether or the End yet. Very, very cool. I like the look of this.
There's also some island expansion thing happening. If you look at the map, there's a
little Ender Pearl icon on it.
Yeah, Island Adventure or something. So that could be cool too. And I don't know if that's part of the DLC or if that's maybe a portal to get to the DLC.
Yeah, that's the impression. The impression I get is that the mainland that we are currently on is the main area in which the campaign takes place at. But then you can Ender Pearl to this DLC at some point when it comes out, whether that's through a Nether portal or through some other kind of means of transport. That's where the DLC hub is going to be for future missions. Not basing that on anything other than my own assumptions, but we'll see what happens. And then Creeping Winter later in the year. Looking forward to more information about that as well.
Also, cross-platform play. The fact that they're working on that is going to be really cool because some of my friends do not have a PC. They have access to Minecraft, but they're playing it on the Mac, so they don't have access to Dungeons. So being able to play on a Switch and potentially teaming up with somebody on a Switch while I'm on my PC, if that's even possible, that would be awesome.
Yes, we have had a bit of feedback from our folks in the Discord about Minecraft Dungeons and what they are playing on, and some folks have said there are a couple of technical issues with the Switch version. It tends to crash kind of frequently. I'm not sure quite what's causing that, but I feel like it's difficult to port these games to different platforms when they all have different hardware specifications, and I think the Switch is kind of underpowered compared to like modern PC specs and the Xbox and so forth. So I do wonder how the experience is on Switch. And of course, if you feel like writing in about that, the email is spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. If you want to share your experiences with Minecraft Dungeons on whatever platform you play, it'd be super great to hear from you. Did you want to briefly touch on this Cloak Clothing line and the sort of merchandise? I have to say I kind of want to get the hardback guide for Minecraft Dungeons, if only to find out what the names of some of the mobs are, because it doesn't always tell you in game. There is no like in-game bestiary, so I'm kind of
I
hoping
have that issue too.
Yeah.
You know, like I'm not usually a hardback guide person. I'm not that into, you know, going through the games in that kind of level of detail. I used to be when Nintendo Power Magazine, I had a subscription when I was a kid. But I am curious about stuff like that, because I think, how in the game does it tell you? Is it only when you have a boss fight and they put up the name, or
it's boss fights, and the only other time I've seen certain enemies named is when you get an enchanted one, and then it shows up on screen what their enchantments are. It'll say like, you know, enchanted spider with, you know, fast attack and, you know, burning lava trail or whatever. And so the only way I found out that wraiths were called wraiths, which are the kind of blue floating enemies that you encounter a little bit later.
I was going to ask you.
Yeah, they're in the desert temple, I think, first if you're playing on like lower difficulties. But yeah,
they're rough, man.
They are, but I had no idea what they were called, and I was just calling them like liches or necromancers or whatever. And there's like, I actually nailed the name of the geomancer, because I've been talking about wanting a geomancer villager for a while, and there's this illager in Pumpkin Pastures onwards who spawns these giant stone pillars around you to block your way and stuff. And I started calling that one the Geomancer before I realized that was even its name. But there is no real way in game of knowing what those are. They're just like things for you to hit. And if they're not in the core Minecraft game, then we don't know the nomenclature for them yet. So I'm kind of interested to get that guide just to see if it has a little bit more information about what each of those are. And there's potentially information there that, like, is this an undead mob technically? So does smite work better on it versus other enchantments? And, like, knowing how the game classifies certain things, if that information is in the guide, would be very helpful to me, actually.
Yeah, no, I agree. I'm less excited about the merch. I don't know if
about the clothing line, yeah.
The clothing line. I mean, I've seen Minecraft merch before. I'm not a big merch guy, and I understand that the design of some of the stuff is probably maybe not aimed at me, but unless you're a fan of Cloak, and I say that with a tongue in cheek, because their logo is all over everything. Like, it's almost like you have to be as big of a fan of Cloak as you do of Minecraft Dungeons. It seems like the Dungeons design, the Dungeons IP is secondary to these designs. So I'm not a fan. I would much rather have, and this is something we can get into more in the main discussion because it relates to the design of Minecraft Dungeons. But I think, pardon the pun, the icons in Minecraft Dungeons are iconic. Like when you see that sword, or you see that mushroom. What's the mushroom?
The Death Cat mushroom.
Level? Death Cat mushroom. Especially when it's early level. Fishing rod, Death Cat mushroom, boots of swiftness. Things that everybody that's played the game for 5 minutes has probably seen. Just give me that on a t-shirt, like a periodic table. Just one. And that's all I need. You know, I think people that are fans of the game would be way more inclined to have cool stuff like that on it. Most of the closest thing I could find was a mushroom, but it has cloak everywhere. And you're just kind of like, so is there a mushroom cloak in the game? Like, it all seems to be very confusing. And it's definitely just not my style. I don't want to besmirch anybody that is excited and is looking forward to getting any of the merchandise, because obviously to each their own. But I was really surprised, considering how minimal the design is in Minecraft Dungeons and how clean it is. The design of the clothing is anything but. I'm not sure if you felt the same way.
Yeah, it's not my thing, and I'm fairly resigned to the fact that I'm not the most fashionable person in the world, so this might push buttons for people for whom it doesn't for me. But yeah, I mean, it's kind of cool to see Dungeons almost like launching as big as it has, with there being like instantly a clothing line and a strategy guide. And I think a bunch of YouTube folks also got sent like care packages with plush redstone golems and stuff in. So like they're doing the most with this. They're firing on all cylinders. So you got to admire that. And I believe 10% of the revenue from the Cloak Clothing line also goes to a COVID-19 relief charity.
That's cool.
So that's super great, obviously. But yeah, the clothing itself, not really my thing. Like you, I'm not the biggest merch guy, but I have bought a couple of things in recent years, and this doesn't necessarily appeal to me, but it's not necessarily designed to. So
Yeah, I mean, like I'm a graphic tee guy. I like a good Superman shirt or a Green Lantern T-shirt or Captain America or something like that. But there are things from Minecraft that I would totally wear on a shirt, but it's just like I can't. Nothing from this line really kind of speaks to me to the point where it's like, well, that doesn't really say Minecraft Dungeons to me. But I think part of it too. Minecraft has been around for so long that there are inherent social memes that just go with it, right?
yeah, yeah.
Whereas we don't really have that yet. For Minecraft Dungeons, I kind of feel like it has to be around longer before somebody makes a joke about like the fishing rod or, about the wizard's hat, which I love. Like stuff like that is where it becomes like, oh, like that's OP or this is the instant death or something like that. I feel like those are the things that people might cling to.
I might have a couple of options for you in the main discussion, but we'll get to that. First of all, we've got
Yes.
some email to read, and this one...
We do.
Yeah, this one is coming in from Lord Valor. Why don't you take this one?
Absolutely. The subject of the email is experimenting with Minecraft Dungeons. Hello, Pixel Riffs and Joel. I love the podcast. It gives me something to listen to while I'm cooped up in quarantine. Keep it up. Okay, I think we will. I have been playing Minecraft Dungeons, and I am really enjoying it. I am finding, though, that I am getting quite a few swords, axes, and armor in my inventory over time. Sometimes I have a hard time giving up some of the gear because it has a new enchantment I want to try, but salvaging my current weapon or armor for its upgrade point may be a downgrade for me in the long run. How are you experimenting with all of the enchantments and weapons available when there are so many great options? Should I be watching streams and videos to get more knowledge about the game so I know what I might prefer? Thanks for your entertainment you provide. Best regards, Lord Valor. Lord Valor writes into this to the Citadel Cafe too, so thanks very much for the great email, Lord Valor. I've got some thoughts on this right off the top. I have the same issue that you do with the game, in that you kind of feel limited with what you can hold and what you want to keep and what's good for you. I'd love to have a chest, small capacity back at camp, so stuff that you can't have access to when you're playing a level, but you don't want to dismiss right away because, like you said, it has a cool enchant and it might be good for a boss fight or it might be good for something. Now, you do have a fairly large inventory. I think it's like 30 slots. I've not been to a situation where I've been full. Like I've never been forced to salvage something. I've always had room to collect things I need. But I'm also taking the time to salvage things that are basically junk for me before I start a mission. Currently, my build focuses on sustainability. So I'm trying to balance max health with max damage reduction. And then offensively, any kind of damage over time or damage reduction to enemies. I think it's weakness or weakening. I don't remember the name of the enchantment. It's purple. I know that much. And it makes a purple cloud over the bad guys and they hurt you less. So in the combination with all of those things basically means I last a lot longer in a fight. The issue with keeping weapons with enchants that you want to try is that you will quickly out-level that weapon. And this is something that I've done where, I want to try leeching. And this is a really cool weapon. It's some knives or some sickles that had leeching on them. It's like, I'll try those. And then I played one more level and I out-leveled those to the point where like, well, even if leeching was cool, they're like 6 points below my power rating now. So I don't want to use them. I've got something that does 3 times the damage. So why would I use those when I can clearly use this new thing? So what I say, if you want to try something, try it. You can get the enchantment point back if it doesn't work out. It's not the end of the world, which I love about the way that they've structured this game. Mm-hmm. It's not like you're wasting enchantment points. You get them back, and you get them all back. I salvaged that weapon that had a full tier 3 weakness, again, correct me if I'm wrong, enchantment on it. And I got all 6 points back when I salvaged that, which I didn't think was good. I thought I was going to get 3. Like I was just like, I figured there had to be a cost, but it's not. Alternatively, you could do another playthrough with a new character, salvage weapons you've used before just on sight, and then you like go in favor of stuff you've just not tried. Don't make a decision based on how you're doing to say, well, I've never used daggers, so I'm using daggers this time, and that's the only thing I'm going to use, or I'm going to build that specific way. I have been watching streams because of potential spoilers. I haven't finished the game yet, but once you've played through the story ones, depending on how you feel about the discovery spoilers, watching other people play is a good way to look outside your own experience as well. I do, however, really like currently the ooh shiny factor of seeing new weapon or new enchant or new artifact in the game that I had no idea even existed. So I have been watching streams. I don't know. How about you, Pexorus? Like when it comes to experimenting with stuff, like how are you going about it in the game?
I have been watching a couple of streams, and I was surprised to find that basically everybody has a different setup to me. And whenever I would dip into streams, I would see stuff that I'd never seen before. So, if anything, it was kind of fun hopping into those streams and finding people being like, "Oh, hey, like check it out! I have this amazing sword that deals a ton of fire damage," or like I'd found a unique glaive that did like a ton of damage or something. And there's some really cool stuff to be found outside of your own experience. So yeah, I do think it's fun to get that stuff and maybe find that that's the stuff you want to aim for. If you're like, right, I'm going to play until I find that weapon. Then it gives you some other objectives if you know it's out there to begin with, which once again is another reason I want to get the hardback guide for this game, is knowing what else is out there that I haven't found yet when I'm on that kind of completionist bent of I want to find everything just so I've had the full experience, you know? I agree that there should be some sort of storage chest, or maybe the option to buy back items that you've salvaged, maybe unique items only, maybe for a higher price because you know what you're getting. But
Right.
I used to play Destiny 1, and Destiny 1 did this with the exotic weapons. Once you had acquired them, either through them being, rare drops from gameplay, or occasionally, like once per week, a character would show up at the tower and you could buy exotic weapons from him. And he'd always have something different, and the perks on it would be different. But then once you had acquired it once, even if you junked it for whatever you got back in that game, I can't remember now, you could buy them again from a kiosk at the tower, and sometimes they'd have a different set of perks. And perks just being like kind of like the enchantments in dungeons, you know? So if you scrap like a unique, say, diamond sword, and it doesn't have enchantments you want, you can buy it back from someplace, and maybe it has different enchantments that you like a little bit better, instead of you having to grind levels over and over again in the hope that you'll get that diamond sword that has a better set of enchantments. Might seem like a better system to me, but that's not currently in the game. I don't know if they plan to add that in future, if there's, a greater variety of weapons, if it makes more sense then, or what. I do like the fact that you can zero in on that stuff, though. So if you're finding that you want sword-style weapons, you look for those weapons in the little icons that appear when you're loading up the levels, and you know not to grind for swords in a place that's only going to give you daggers or sickles, or like you don't want to go to the swamp if you want the heavier weapons like glaives. You want to go to like redstone mines for that.
Right.
So the game kind of does that intuitively and seeds different loot in different areas. As an alternative approach to just starting a new character, you can clone your character from the main character select screen, from basically the main menu. This doesn't clone your entire inventory, but it does clone anything that character has equipped. It will, completely wipe all your emeralds and anything that you're not actively holding, but you get your artifacts, your armor, melee weapon, and bow. So if you want to, you can save your character that has all of the inventory and stuff, then go through, equip a sword and a bow that you feel like checking out, maybe some different armor, clone the character while they're wearing those, and you can go back in and swap some stuff around, clone the character again, and then you get multiple permutations of the same character at the level that you're at right now and the power level you're at right now, all with different gear. So potentially you can clone your character out that way if you want to experiment and have like a couple of offshoots, branches of the same character, all rocking different gear. That might be a little bit time consuming, and again, bear in mind it does clear the inventory for the new character, not your main character, but the new one that the clone that you create has no inventory aside from
Still,
what it's
that's
holding.
really cool. I didn't know you could do that. And so is it the same skin? Can you change the skin later?
I think you can change the skin whenever you want to from the character select screen.
That's really cool. So you could essentially, if you built up a bunch of stuff and you just finished the swamp and you realize that you have a lot of rogue gear, you could totally just make a rogue-like character in terms of like dress your tank like a rogue, clone it, and then go back and dress your tank like a tank again, and still have all your main gear, and then have an offshoot character that's the same level.
Yeah.
Although I want to say, because I was experimenting with this, trying to figure out how to get the right power level, if you have different gear, I'm pretty sure your power level will change if the gear is less than what you're currently wearing.
Yeah, but
Because I
sorry,
mean,
go on.
your player level won't change, but your power level would, right?
Yeah, the power level is really just a guideline, though, as far as I can tell. Like, it
Mm,
doesn't seem to affect the gear you get from the blacksmith and the wandering trader. Those seem tied to your player level.
right.
And the power level is really just so you know if you're underpowered going into a level where you're, moving the difficulty slider around and seeing where you need to be for completing the challenges that are in that level. So I think, yeah, power level can be more of a guideline, and then once you know what kind of gear you like using, you can maybe try and grind for higher level gear of that class. It
Right.
does mean
So
if you want to, you have like a level 90 character or something absurd like that, because I know some people out there have, and much higher. You can just clone a level 90 character and be playing at that difficulty level as much as you want. Um,
right. The reason I asked that is because when I was trying to figure out where to go next in my last playthrough, I had removed some armor, and then it's like, oh, wait a minute. I thought I was a higher power level rating. And it turns out like just switching out that one piece of armor for, I think it was like rogue type gear for more tank like gear. And my rating was flipping between 16 and 18,
yeah.
depending on which set of armor I was wearing. So, but that's cool though. I did not know that you can, I didn't even see that in the interface that you could clone a character. That's good to know.
Yeah, it's pretty handy. Again, the alternative is create new characters and do multiple playthroughs. The game is actually quick enough that you can feasibly do this, and that I think is the counterpoint to people saying the game doesn't have a whole lot of content. The content is going back through, finding new weapons, finding new ways to beat the game, new strategies, different builds, that kind of thing. And the fact that you can go through the default difficulty in 4 to 8 hours means that it doesn't take long to get a second playthrough started and play it completely differently.
Yeah.
The first time through, I trashed anything that didn't work for my rogue build. Now I'm going back through with the second character and messing around with the heavier melee weapons just to see what I missed. Because at the time, I was salvaging everything, going, nope, that doesn't have synergy with the stuff I want. Let me just, trash all of that for emeralds and keep going through the blacksmith. I think we're already getting into our main discussion here, so let's go in depth. First of all, we've tried to keep it spoiler-free thus far, and we'll be keeping it spoiler-free as far as the plot goes for the remainder of this discussion. We are going to be talking about the weapons and armor that we found, and the artifacts and stuff that we really like, and probably where those can be found, but we're probably not going to go into the plot, what happens at the end. Joel hasn't beaten the game yet either, so I don't want to spoil the experience for you. But then I think it's going to be a different level of spoilers for everybody. So if you don't want to hear about the stuff that is out there gear-wise, then yeah, maybe tune back in a little bit later, or maybe play the game a little bit more and then come back to this discussion, because we're about to get into it. So, Joel, your experience of Minecraft Dungeons, please.
Man, I don't know where to start other than just I really enjoy this game. I was a Diablo player. I was not an end game Diablo player. I played through it once and did a little bit of post, first playthrough play, but it didn't really grab me in that way. But I just, as a Minecraft fan, Dungeons is it is a ton of fun. It is visually rewarding. Right off the bat, you start to feel more powerful. The firework arrow is great. You can upgrade that, and it just piles and piles and piles and piles. And I'm having a ton of fun. And as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's an excellent escape from the 116 kind of like doldrums of like, wow, I kind of want to build stuff, but I kind of want to wait. And I'm also on a big project in a modern city in Minecraft, and like all the things I want to do next are ginormous. And it's like, oh, I don't really want to start a big thing right now.
It's a good game to procrastinate with in that
Yeah,
respect, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I also do find it fun to interact with the chat. Like there's a lot more going. There's a lot more questions. So I find streaming Dungeons is great because I did a poll, and about 30 to 40% of my chat room had not played the game and have not owned the game, but were watching me play. So they had great questions like, how does that work? What does this do? How do you know? And then I was asking stuff of people that have played a little bit longer than me, going like, where the heck is the soul meter? How do I tell how many of these I have? And so we were going back and forth on that. So it's a really cool learning experience as well. As you mentioned, I've not beaten the game. I have not beaten the necromancer in the desert, although I have fought the necromancer in the desert temple.
Uh-huh. He's a
I
tough
almost
one.
had him.
He's a tough
I
one.
almost had him, and then he did something, and I was full health, and he one-shotted me, and I was like,
Oh,
that did not feel good.
that's
That did
rough.
just not feel. It was just like all of a sudden there was 8 of him and 8 of his friends, and they all kind of went poof. And I
Yeah.
was just like, what just happened? There was nothing I could do, and it was at the end of like a solid 1 hour play session,
Yeah. Because
between breaks.
they put some
And I was
pretty
just like,
tough boss fights at the end of long
Yeah.
levels.
yeah, and I was like, you know what? I'm done with that for now. We're gonna keep playing because I was having fun, but we're gonna go do something else. Something I really do like about the game is that you never. Oh, okay. I say thus far, I have never had only one option. Right?
Yeah.
It's not. It's not. Here's your bottleneck. It's like, okay, you have to beat the cactus. I think it's the Cactus Valley. What's it
Cacti
called?
Canyon.
Cacti Canyon. You have to be Cacti Canyon, but after that, you've got the Fiery Forge and the Desert Temple, so you can
Yes.
choose between them. But I think that's the only bottleneck, and it's been great because it allows you to choose. Like, oh, I got frustrated with that, but then you can go to Fiery Forge and gear up a little bit, get a little more levels, and then when you go back, it becomes a little bit easier. I did not beat the Soggy Swamp the first time through. The end boss battle owned my face. I just did not have enough healing power or strategy at that time and game knowledge to deal with the creepy cauldron at the end, curse cauldron.
Yeah.
And
how have you been doing in terms of like difficulty level? Like, where are you playing at? Are you playing at your power level, above, or a little bit below, or how are you handling
above.
the difficulty stuff?
Yeah, so I've found that I've gone through one place where I was at level 16 and the next level up was like level 20 or 22, and it was like 1.5 difficulty, and I went in there and I basically got owned. I
Yeah.
think I beat it, but it was only because it wasn't like a boss battle. It was just like the end battle was basically just like one of those waves and waves and waves of people. But in the levels that I had done before in the beta where I knew what to expect, I was going in. Luckily, I was being rated above level 2, but below level 3.
Mhm.
So like the power ratings are 16 and 22, and I was like 18.
Yeah.
So going in at 18 on a 22 is actually not bad. It's challenging. It's fun. You got to think. Like, you can't just spam and go in there and own face. You have to really think about what you're doing and change your strategies and stuff. I haven't beaten Fiery Forge. I've been in it, but I ran out of time on stream, and I think for me it's been at least 8 hours. But I'm taking my time.
Yeah.
Like, I'm really crawling through these places, and I'm taking 20 or 30 minutes over the course of a stream, all told together, to empty the inventory, decide what to enchant. Like, I'm kind of building things out and talking with the chat.
Yeah.
I really like that ability to be at the camp and have a chance to talk with chat and decide what to do and answer questions and stuff like that. So I'm quite liking that. In terms of the difficulty, I like the pacing. I like that you feel overwhelmed. Very often when I'm playing at my power level, I'll be down to like 25% of my health, which makes you pay attention, but it doesn't frustrate you. Like, you're not getting utterly destroyed every time. In places where I've died where it's not been a boss fight, I've known the mistake that I've made. Like, It's like, I know what happened there. I rolled and I shouldn't have, or I got caught, or something that I do a lot, which I need to figure out how to fix, is that currently I have my inventory as E and my heal was R, and I kept on hitting my inventory button instead of my heal button, which completely blocks the screen. Not only did you not heal, but now you can't see what's going on.
And then you just see your character taking damage in the
Yeah.
inventory screen. That sucks.
Yeah,
Oh, man.
so I've moved it to D, so heal is now D, which means I don't have to move my finger. Which is good, and I've also picked up a couple of artifacts and stuff that have helped me along the way. But like I said, like I played, I slayed, I died, and I don't mind, because like it's difficult enough that if I die at a boss battle, and this, I guess, not to get ahead of myself, but this is one thing I did find that I was surprised at. I got all the way down to the end of the creepy cauldron, and I just happened to be standing in the wrong place. Like, I thought I had enough DPS to get rid of him at the very last health bar. He had like 5% left. And then he did the Ring of Fire, and I was standing too close. And I didn't realize that because of the perspective, because of the way that, I was above him, and I didn't realize how close I was to him.
Yeah.
And I died. And when I came back, he was at 5% health. I walked up to him and basically flicked him in the forehead, and he and I won.
Yeah.
And I was fully expecting to have to do it again, but I knew how to do it, so I wasn't really that worried. And I just felt like I got overconfident and I stood in the wrong spot. Just, it's a game mechanic I have to get used to. It was just me being a little overconfident, but I was not necessarily disappointed. I didn't want to do it again because it's a longish fight. But I was surprised I wasn't punished. Like, I'm surprised that I was able to just like spawn back in and be just like, oh, he's basically dead. Like,
Yeah.
it felt strange. I thought he was going to be at least half or full power. Like, I thought it's like, you've died. I guess it's because it wasn't my last life. That was the only reason that it wasn't.
Yeah, and if you game over on a level, you do have to go and play it from the beginning.
Yeah,
So that's the
from the
only real
beginning, yeah.
punishing element of it. But then again, you don't lose your inventory, you don't lose any emeralds, like you haven't like dropped anything. It's not the roguelike Minecraft experience that people are used to from the core game, where like you have to go back and get all of your items, recover your souls in like the Dark Souls kind of way. It doesn't work that way at all in this game. And I think that's good. I think that's probably where they're pitching it in terms of difficulty, the player base, maybe some younger players wanting to get into the game. And there is potential for stuff like that to be introduced on higher difficulties, but I still think the game scales really well for higher difficulties. And I think it's nice that you don't end up being punished too much, because that might put me off playing the level again if I feel like the same thing is just going to happen again and I'm going to be set back away and have to grind my way back into it.
Yeah, I agree. So that's kind of like my general experience from the first go at it. How has yours been?
The overview. Yeah, mine has been, again, very, very good. I like this game a lot. I beat default difficulty, did that over 2 streams on Twitch. I'd say it took about 7 hours total for me to beat the story once. I explored every level pretty thoroughly. Like, I was opening the map every so often to check that there were areas that I hadn't gone into yet. And I was trying to find as many kind of little hidden chests and stuff as I could just to try and get some loot. Eventually, I think I was skipping my way through sections of the last level just because I wanted to get to the end of the experience. I wanted to see what the boss was and find out what was next. So since that, I've created 2 new characters. One to kind of play through casually and try out the weapons I discarded, because like I said earlier, I was playing more of like a rogue style, built for speed, fast weapons and that kind of stuff, and a very up-close melee approach, whereas now I'm feeling like a lot happier with stuff like glaives, which have a really long range and that kind of stuff. My second playthrough is a personal challenge, which I will get into a little bit later once we've had more of a discussion, because, you guys are going to like this. It's a little bit silly. I've also played some multiplayer with the Hot Dish, previous guest on the show, and a couple of her streaming collaborators. There was no voice call. She was streaming at the time, so I was just listening into her stream, and I think it was easy enough for a pickup game where I wasn't like in a Discord call to follow the flow of the game without direct communication. The emote system that they have in there is pretty cool. The one bit of feedback from that was that there was a pretty regular connection issue when we finished a level. Everybody would get like kicked back to the character select screen once we won, and I'd have to like rejoin the session from there. But when you rejoined and went back to camp, I mean, even if you didn't go back to camp with all of the other people, you still got rewards for the level you just finished. So that chest still appears that gives you an item at the end of the level when you go back into camp. So that's not bad, because it's not just like, kicking you in the teeth after you've just been, thrown out of this collaborative gameplay experience. You're still getting the rewards that you're owed. So that was a fun experience. They were much higher level than I was. So I find that if you're in a level and they're doing like a higher difficulty, you feel a little bit, if you're underpowered, you feel underpowered. I was taking down a zombie within 5 or 6 slashes of a dagger, and then the next zombie would just one-shot me, and then they'd have to come and revive me. But I had enough things like a firework arrow crossbow that I could use as like, let me clear out this area a little bit more, and I'd take out some of the basic enemies, and then they could come in and clean up some of the kind of higher difficulty ones. So I think ultimately I felt like I contributed, even though I was probably 20 or 30 levels lower than they were, experience-wise.
Did you find any of was there any cool mechanics that were being used in the group where healing auras or protection auras and things? Yeah,
absolutely.
That stuff was going on.
The first thing Dish said was stay close to Chris. He has radiance, so every time he fires his weapon, it's going to heal you. And I was like, okay, I'm sticking by him, and I tried my best to keep up with them as they went through the level. TNT is still really good as well. Like the consumables and stuff will scale the damage they do based on what difficulty you're on, I think. So you can still clear out a room of zombies on a higher difficulty if you just chuck TNT in the right place, which is very good. So yeah, the first thing I saw after I finished my default playthrough, I raided, I think, F-Whip or somebody who had been grinding the game since before it came out because they got early access, and I saw somebody on Apocalypse difficulty doing damage in the thousands. And
oh my gosh.
yeah, like once it gets to higher levels of the game, you are dealing with enemies that have a super high HP threshold, and you are doing super high damage. So it feels like the power level increases sort of exponentially almost, to the point where you are getting armor that can give you 3,000 health and higher, you know? And I don't know what the level cap is in this game either. I don't know like what the upper limit is, if there even is one. It seems to be above 100. Like
it's
you can
probably based on whatever graphical interface they can fit.
Yeah, exactly. like
once it hits 4 digits, we're kind of stuck.
Yeah, exactly.
Like Y2K.
But it's not like a level 99 thing where you can't go over that. There are people who have characters who are like level 150. I was seeing people with gear that had a rating over 100. Like it's good, it's deep, and you can probably get to the point where you are beating Apocalypse difficulty handily if you keep grinding through those levels. It's also very cool to see that everybody has a different play style, because like I was doing rogue stuff, I joined your stream, you're doing more tanky kind of melee stuff, you've got the armor that does damage reduction. I saw Stingin was streaming, and he had like a cool soul build where he was gathering souls from stuff using little magical artifacts, using the armor that increased your magic power. And there's enough gear to sustain that for either multiple solo playthroughs or for multiplayer to have a really well built out set of classes, and people can mix and match stuff. So that's super fun.
Yeah, having spells as a melee player, like having some artifacts that can do some stuff is super cool. For me, I just started experimenting with soul power in my latest stream. I didn't even know it was a thing. I get an artifact. It's like, oh, this will disperse souls in an explosion. It's called the Harvester, which is weird because it doesn't harvest anything. Well, I guess it does, but it more so it disperses them in a giant soul explosion. And it's huge. It's like the size of a firework if you get it done right. And I was like, okay, well, it needs souls. How do I get souls? And no, there was no explanation about how to get souls until later on when I picked up the soul blade, when it says, oh, this will collect souls from enemies. And I thought, okay, well, now I know how to use that. So I equipped that. Then I got bone armor. I can't remember the name of the armor, but the armor is basically a skeleton that you wear.
Yeah.
And it says collects 100% more souls. So all of a sudden I had like 2 artifacts, a weapon, and armor that was collecting souls. So I was full of soul. I was a soul man.
You start to get that stuff around Desert Temple when the kind of like the necromancer themes start creeping in. Souls will actually get gathered if you have a soul artifact of some kind. You just have to beat mobs, and the little soul particle will rise up out of them. But
which I thought was great, because I wasn't a real big fan of the sword, but I realized that if I had the armor on and 1 artifact, I would still gather souls. And I thought, perfect, like this is great. So I had a soul powered healing artifact that had a 1-second cooldown, which is honestly a little OP. And then I had this harvester. And man, when you've got the gear like I had, which was negative 35% damage, so you take less damage, you have 105 health or something bananas. So I switched from using the bone armor to using my tank armor with my glaive that was going in and weakening everything. So I'm just marching into, I don't know, 15, 20 zombies and bad guys all swarming me, and then going click. And then the soul explosion just dismantles everything.
Yeah.
And so basically it's like a superhero landing in the middle of all these mobs. And you can go back and watch the clips on my Twitch channel. I giggled like I was 12. It's very satisfying. And so I want to experiment more with the soul thing, because I think that it's got a neat mechanic. And I like how you don't have to use like a specific weapon that you may not like to gather it. And I like that it's not like a Mario thing where you have to run over them to collect them. Like they kind of float towards you, which I think is great. It really just adds so much mysticism to the gameplay. It was something I had no idea was in the game. It was a really fun discovery live on stream yesterday. It was great. The other thing that I've found that I've gravitated towards is my glaive. Glaives for the win, man.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if you've used them at all, but so far it's my favorite weapon.
Yeah.
It has all the things that I like. It has several different animations. It has an insane range for a melee weapon, and the last swipe with it is a sweeping attack that hits multiple enemies.
Yeah.
And combined with the enchant that weakens the enemies, it was just a lifesaver for me because I was having a little. I'm not a big dungeon crawler gamer. Like I'm not the best Twitch gamer out there, like in terms of like Twitch reflexes. So being able to last a little bit longer and being able to keep enemies that hit like trucks, like the armored. I think it's the armored illagers.
Yeah.
They will really mess you up.
They will. The
and
Vindicators with like the horned helmets and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So you got to keep those guys at a distance. And the glaive is fast enough that you can kind of hit them a couple of times, or with a combination of like a point blank bow shot, which always makes me feel like an urukai when I do it.
Mm-hmm.
And a couple of glaive hits, and it's enough to push them back that you'll survive it, and they don't get anywhere near you. And so that it's been an absolute lifesaver. And then I ended up with rogue armor that increased my attack speed by 25%. Boy, howdy, is that fun with a glaive.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Like it's really cool. And yes, I mean, that's kind of where I am with my build right now. I do have a really cool bow. I think I only just retired it recently for a more powerful one, but a twin bow was my sidearm for the longest time. And no enchant needed. It just shot 2 projectiles at 2 different enemies. And so you start with twin arrows, and then you can add like explosives and other stuff to them. So man, it was just an excellent way to kind of like get through some of the bottleneck levels that I was experiencing. What was like, so what, I know you were going with speed, and I think you mentioned speed synergy the last time we spoke about it. So what have you been doing in terms of your weapons, and like what artifacts have you found that have just been super cool?
So for my rogue playthrough, I was just swapping stuff until I got, whatever was best at the time. I didn't really use the glaives all that much because at that point I'd settled on sickles and daggers, and swiftness boots, death cap mushroom, basically anything that got me to move or attack faster. When I played Redstone Mine, I got a unique variant of the wolf armor, which was fox armor. And you know me and foxes at this point. If people have been listening to the show regularly, they know about my foxes. There's a family of wild foxes that just hangs out in my backyard sometimes. So I love foxes in Minecraft and in real life. And I never took the fox armor off. It is still on my character. It is probably 11 power levels below what I should be wearing at this point. I don't care. Until I get some better fox armor, I'm not taking it off. That one doesn't necessarily have too much stuff aside from a slightly faster move speed that benefits the rogue, but it's got a decent health thing. It's one of the ones where with wolf armor, it heals people around you when you drink a health potion, is like the main buff for it. The fox armor also has a bunch of, like, it's like a percentage chance to negate hits entirely, so you don't take damage sometimes when mobs hit you. So that allowed me to, play the melee game, like the close range game, pretty well. I started out using heavy crossbows because they sounded cool, but I kept running out of arrows, and then it was only after I did a bit more experimentation between streams that I realized some bows start you with less ammo and only give you 10 arrows per bundle. And then if you have, like, there's actually, along with, like, power and speed, there is an ammo rating for those bows. And the heavy crossbows give you, like, very little, and there are multi-shot crossbows, like scatter crossbows, and the harp crossbow that I eventually got, which... they give you way more arrows, you pick up more ammo because you are dispersing more ammo, but then you get enchantments like multi-shot and chain reaction, which not only fire more arrows than the bow is supposed to naturally, but then those arrows ricochet off into different places and hit multiple targets, and then you combine that with the firework, and you use the thing to clear a room. So the lightning harp crossbow became my main sidearm for this one, and I spent most of the time with the difficulty slider like one level above what was recommended, because I found that a fairly satisfying challenge, and I did pretty well. The first level that really gave me trouble was, I think, like you, the Desert Temple, because I didn't have a whole lot of healing artifacts at the time. I was just relying on potions, and those enemies that summon other mobs were really tough to take down because I couldn't get up close to them at that point, and I was still using heavy crossbows, so I couldn't really like deal a huge amount of damage to a ton of stuff at once. I didn't really use the soul artifacts very much, so I'm looking forward to getting a few more of those and trying out some more magical stuff a little bit later on. But for my first playthrough, you only get one or two. You get the Corrupted Beacon, you get the Harvester. That was basically it. And so I just stuck with physical stuff and basically anything that made me faster. I think I finished with the Firework Arrow, the Deathcap Mushroom, and Swiftness Boots. Like, I was keeping it pretty simple, and like stuff that you get at the start of this game can carry you through to the end of the game. The final boss, I won't spoil anything, but was great. It went from easy to terrifying very fast. So have fun with that, folks. I ended up trying out a couple of levels on adventure difficulty, and you really feel the difference. Like, I went into Creeper Woods, I maybe went to difficulty 2 on adventure, and I was getting my butt handed to me. And that's good, because then that means there is depth to the game after that, and reason to replay those levels. Plus, once you get into adventure difficulty, there might be a couple of other secret areas that start to unlock. So there is more depth to this. You probably picked up that scroll that gives you the creepy crypt level. From what I understand, there are more of those out there.
I was wondering that because it's one of those things where I feel like the creepy crypts thing just kind of makes sense. Like, you've got this random dungeon that's going to squirrel around. It's huge. It takes a solid hour and 20 minutes to go through every bit of it, unless you're rushing. And it's one of those things where you kind of think that there's going to be more of those adjacent to the main story levels, where you're going to be able to go into that environment like the Redstone Mine and have a giant Redstone Mine dungeon, right? So I'm looking forward to unlocking those if there's going to be more, because I think that's going to be cool. Some of the things for me that have stood out, and just some great moments, just fun, kind of whimsical things, like kiting skeletons towards me and then watching them be squished by the stone booby traps in Desert Temple.
They gotta get punched from both sides, yeah.
Yeah, they get smushed and then they fall. And I was like, I didn't shoot him. Did he just die? Like, are these booby traps hitting them too? Yeah. Sure enough, they are. It's brilliant. Sending a heavy illager, the ones with the horned helmets, tumbling after a one-shot over the edge into the fiery forge in just one foul swoop. Now, he was already dead. Like, I got him. It's not like it was I used the kickback to kill him, but it was just that satisfying physics of him doing like a spin, like he just got roundhouse kicked by a giant arrow.
The ragdoll physics in this game are so much fun.
Oh, it's and the fact that he was there and then gone in a minute, and it was very clear that he kind of went over into the lava, and myself and the chat were just like,
you're like, wow, you're like, that man is dead now. Like,
yeah, you are. See ya. Yeah, I really enjoyed stuff like that. And then finally, like I mentioned before, releasing the full power of the Harvester of Souls when you are mobbed by mobs in a checkpoint fight, like the real serious fights. Man, is it fun. Yeah. Like, it shakes the room and stuff goes flying, and they all have this like, we've got you now kind of vibe to it. And you're like, nope, big red button, click, and then see you later, everybody. It was I had a blast with some of the combinations of artifacts, and I know what you mean about the early artifacts sticking with you. I still use the firework arrow. Now, granted, I've upgraded it. I got a new one, so it's a higher
it does
damage.
Like more damage at that point, yeah.
And it's a broader range too. But I also continuously keep the Boots of Swiftness on me, because I find that especially in places like the Desert Temple, and I was trying to think about one. Evading redstone golems that are quick on their feet for big dudes.
Yeah.
The Boots of Swiftness come in very, very handy. And I've kept them on my bar pretty much exclusively.
Yeah, definitely. This game is not without its problems, though. Like, we've been talking it up a lot, but there are, I think, still a few technical issues with it. If not gameplay issues, then a couple of things I've run into are issues with, like, collision and movement here and there. Yep. In very rare cases here, and this is towards the end of the game, so I won't say exactly what it is. It's on the last level. Right. I would walk into an object I was meant to interact with, and I'd just clip straight through it. Like, I wouldn't fall or anything, but it would meant to be something that I was going to step on, and it just didn't step on it. Like, my character sunk into the block. and was like clipping through it. So there is some stuff that I don't know what causes that. It seems to be kind of random, which is frustrating because it's unpredictable, and a lot of the time you're in high pressure situations in that last level, so you want to be able to have stuff work the way it's supposed to work. I would also run into some issues where I got stuck on scenery with mobs attacking me and be unable to move. And sometimes I could dodge roll out of it, but sometimes they were just blocking the path of my roll, and I couldn't seem to get free. And those are probably the most common cause of death for me if I'm playing carefully. So those are the only bugs I've really encountered so far. I'm playing on PC, Windows 10, with an Xbox controller, but I don't know if other people are experiencing the same stuff, if there is other stuff. How about you? Like, maybe not just technical stuff, but maybe what are you feeling about this game could be improved?
So the only bug that I've encountered has been the redstone golems being so big they can get caught on geometry in the game. And depending on your weapon, you can sort of cheese them.
I'm seeing that as a legitimate strategy in a way, though.
So I chose not to. I lured a redstone golem into one of the chambers in the fiery forge that had like the river of lava down the middle and then pillars on the sides, thinking that I could basically get some relief and maybe he couldn't follow me. But he followed me and then got caught on it was something silly. It was like a brazier, and I was
like a little coal fire thing or something.
Like if he got stuck behind a pillar, I'd call that a strategy. But he got stuck behind he basically stubbed his toe and couldn't figure out how to get around it. I was like, okay,
something he should have just been able to crush.
Yeah. Like I feel kind of bad here. So I kited him around it and then fought him. He was pretty much dead anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're hard, and in close quarters, you think you want to get them in close quarters, but then they do this spawning explosion particle thing. You're like, oh, maybe I don't want him in places where I can't run away. So it becomes tricky. But no, the things that I most noticed are, I would say maybe some gameplay improvements or some design improvements. I wish the single damage stat weapons, things like the Great Hammer or a pickaxe that don't have a range, they just simply does 45 damage. They also have a single attack animation, which is too bad because it's kind of boring.
Yeah.
The Great Hammer slam, it's great, pardon the pun, but it's repetitive and it just doesn't feel as exciting when you're just constantly doing the same animation over and over again.
Yeah.
When you have things like sickles that have 5 different swipes, axe glaive have got 3, swords have got 2 or 3. The soul blade that I picked up, it has 1 thrust animation. That's it.
Yeah, you just stab, don't you? Yeah. And
yeah,
I felt that too. I feel like the pickaxe one, while obviously like overhead swings of a pickaxe is very Minecraft, it does feel like the most boring weapon to use to me.
Yeah.
I feel bad. I got a diamond pickaxe at one point and I was like,
same.
You know what? I'm going to trash this. I just can't.
Yeah.
I just don't see myself using those when the other weapons are more exciting. Like I'm just going for something that feels fun to use, and sadly the pickaxe really doesn't.
And they could have it with overhand swings. Like you could maybe just do 1 or 2, different overhand swings. Just change the animation a little bit. I can see what they're doing though, because the weapons that have a range of damage, they do. The first 2 swipes that they do are on the lower end of that.
Yeah.
And then it's their final third roundhouse thing that usually hits more than one enemy that does more damage. You can test this out on the dummies that are at the camp. But yeah, I feel like they could make it a little bit more fun, especially because I feel like if I was using a pickaxe in battle, I would swing it around in a circle. That's one of the techniques I would probably use. Which is so that's one of the things that I think would be kind of neat. I feel like you should be able to roll up slight inclines, not stairs. I'm not saying you should be able to do a roll upstairs, but I'm thinking like, things that look like less than a half a block. Because I've done some rolls to evade and I've been caught on what looks like a molehill, and it's like, okay,
yeah.
And especially and like you said, when you die because of that, you're like, come on, man.
Yeah,
like,
yeah. It feels
I'm firing.
cheap.
Yeah, I have the power of the sun in the palm of my hands with these firework rockets, but you're telling me I can't jump over this rock? So that I found a little bit sticky. Also, and I don't know if you've noticed this, I only noticed it in the Desert Temple, but when stairs run southeast going up, they are very hard to see and understand that they are stairs, because visually from perspective, they're like a sliver.
Yeah, like
And
the isometric side of things is sometimes a little bit.
yeah. So, and because it was a dark dungeon, I found it very difficult to understand that I could go that way, or that I would get caught on them if I didn't go that way. Like it was, so I didn't die or anything, but I felt, I basically walked around this room going like, how the heck do I get out of here? And then realized, oh, this is a staircase. That's where those skeletons are shooting me from. So like, I felt kind of dumb. So I feel like some of that kind of stuff maybe could be just better lit, from a gameplay perspective, like, oh, hey, there's a staircase over here, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
And lastly, the soul collection meter in the UI. I had no idea it was there. It took me, the chat had to be like, Joel, it's below your, it's below your thing.
You don't get a tutorial for it at any point, which is the problem. So you just start picking up these artifacts, and then you realize later that there is something in the inventory that's like filling up on the HUD.
And I don't think it's there until I haven't checked, but I don't think it's there until you get an artifact that has soul on it.
It is not. Yeah, it's not there at all until you pick up a harvester or a corrupted beacon or something.
And it's very small. And I kind of think like if you look at the UI and you look at your level or not your level, but your enchantment points, they're off on the left-hand side. So it's the very far left. And it's not small, but it's not ginormous either. But compared to that, the soul meter is just minuscule. It's like a couple of pixels.
Yeah.
And I kind of feel like those should be the same size. If they increased the soul meter to just a little bit larger, you'd either notice it right away, or it would just be a lot easier at a glance. Like once you know it's there, you can look down.
Yeah.
But I do find it a little bit strange. Now, I will also say I did reduce the UI to something like 70%. I find it kind of large at first, so I did make it a little bit smaller. But still, like it is proportionately, I did find it small. But those are the kind of really tiny nitpicks that I think could be improved. The bigger thing for me is some of the weapons not being as fun, and therefore you're like, well, I don't want to use it. I would want to use it, but it's just not nearly as fun as the other stuff. And I think that's the one disappointment that I have.
On the subject of souls, I kind of wish that there was a way for you to collect souls at the camp so that you could try out those artifacts. Because everything else you can try out on the practice dummies, but the soul weapons you can't. And that's kind of a shame to me. I really wish that it was possible to do that. But
they need to have like a gravestone that you just walk up to and just get like, full of souls.
Yeah, or like even halfway. I feel like most of the artifacts don't even use half of your soul bar. Like it goes in chunks.
No, it's true.
So I feel like you could get a little bit of that. Right, before we wrap up here, because I know we're going pretty long, we have a lot to say about this game. I want to introduce you to The Way of the Barefist Steve.
I've seen this, and it's so good.
So this is something I discovered entirely by accident on one of my streams, that when you unequip your weapons, which you don't have to just swap a weapon for a weapon in your inventory, you can take them out of the inventory slots entirely, you can still punch, which does 1 damage at a time, but it still works. And so when I discovered this, I started compiling a few ideas for like challenge playthroughs. One of which I still plan on doing another time, which is the kind of Minecraft classic approach, in which you only use equipment that's available in vanilla Minecraft. So as far as weapons, you can only use swords, pickaxes, axes, bows, crossbows, and you can't have any of the more fancy stuff like glaives or daggers. You could also apply that to accessories, so the fishing rod and the firework are still allowed, but you're not allowed the deathcap mushroom. I'm still not sure what to do about armor with this, because armor is actually really crucial for certain things. But for bonus points, you could stick to only having vanilla enchantments, so you're only allowed to use sharpness, looting, multi-shots, etc., like stuff that is in vanilla Minecraft. So I was thinking about that. I had another one where you try and beat the game only using the equipment you get from the start, so the sword, bow, fishing rod, and firework arrow. And so once you beat the tutorial, you have everything you need to beat the game. Not certain if that one would work, but my absolute favorite was basically a monk class playthrough. You don't have any weapons, you don't have any soul-consuming accessories, which are also pretty powerful weapons. Elemental rolling attacks are not allowed either, because the goal is to punch your way through everything. So you can equip and enchant armor. Any accessories that enhance your physical abilities are fine. I sort of decided that you should allow pets as well, because they're kind of useful early on. And then consumables like TNT are okay, because sometimes they're just really useful in a pinch. So I decided to try the Barefist Steve playthrough to see if it was possible, and I really enjoyed it. Basically, you're playing on the lowest possible difficulty for every level, because if you don't, you're probably going to die. But doing 1 damage at a time on difficulty 1, you can kill a zombie in 4 or 5 hits on Creeper Woods. So you're having to take everything a little bit slowly. And for people who say that they just rush through the game and it only has 4 hours of content, try this, because 1 level will take you about 2 hours.
Wow.
But, yeah, it kind of encourages a more strategic approach to each level, and it makes even the lowest difficulties pretty tough. But it is ultimately doable. And if you don't believe me, I have a video out about this on my channel, and I'm going to be uploading more stuff. I am now on the last level of the game, and I have not used weapons the entire time. Here is how. First of all, every time I've discovered if you don't have any weapons in your inventory, the game gives you a sword and a bow every time you return to camp and every time you start a level. So you got to scrap those for emeralds instantly. You can just keep them in your inventory if you want to, but if you get a sword and a bow every time you change levels, then that means free emeralds every time. So that can be kind of useful. Some of the early levels, like Creeper Woods, for example, the goal is not to kill a bunch of mobs or beat a boss. You just have to free some villagers and get to the exit. So if you want to go through and just get the artifact for completing the level or open up the next set of levels, you can do that just by getting some boots of swiftness, which you get for beating Creeper Woods the first time, or, find some swiftness potions in chests and stuff like that. You can get lucky, and you can sprint through until you reach the exit. Other levels are not like that, because the boss fights are a bit of a problem. If you try and take on the Evoker in Pumpkin Pastures, you better hope there's a Geomancer around, because then they raise those exploding pillars, and half the time that takes out the Evoker for you. The Redstone Mines boss I found kind of easy, because there is stuff in the environment that is able to do damage to it. But if you look at the Corrupted Cauldron fight in Soggy Swamp, or if you look at the Nameless One fight, the Necromancer in the Desert Temple, those are incredibly tedious, because your goal is to, rush in, punch it a bunch of times, and then run away again. I decided that early on it was going to be easiest to use Boots of Swiftness and Deathcap Mushroom, because Deathcap Mushroom allows you to punch twice as fast. But then I got the fishing rod to stun stuff. Later, I got this artifact called the Wind Horn, which knocks enemies back in a radius around you and also slows them down, which is really good for crowd control. And also, if you get a Totem of Regeneration, you can basically create a radius in which you're going to heal. So if you slow down all of the enemies that are walking towards you, it gives you time to heal before you can rush away and start punching some more stuff. Then the keystone of this strategy ultimately was an enchantment you can get on armor called Surprise Gift, which if you drink a health potion, it gives you free buff potions. It basically drops a swiftness potion, a shadow brew, or a strength potion, or sometimes a bundle of arrows. And so suddenly I'm able to do 2 damage instead of 1, and with the Deathcap Mushroom, I'm doing 2 damage repeatedly, and you can take down tougher enemies that way. Eventually, I ended up at Soggy Swamp getting an Ember Robe, which is an armor that's like the advanced, unique version of the Enchanter's Robe, and it does burning damage to anything that's within melee range. It also reduces artifact cooldown time, had the Surprise Gift enchantment, and also had a cooldown reduction enchantment, so I can refresh my artifacts almost as soon as I've used them. So the later levels get really tough, especially because as you go through the levels, there is a minimum difficulty, and by the time you reach the final level, you have to play it on difficulty 5. So that's a concern, because I guess the final boss is tough enough that they don't want to set expectations by having, like, really low-level enemies, and then have the final boss absolutely stomp you if you're not prepared for it. But the difficulty levels scale up enemy attack and enemy HP, so it becomes increasingly more difficult to take out the same enemy classes. However, I got that far. I beat High Block Halls, which is the second to final level. It took me 2.5 hours, and it involved a lot of using the Wind Horn to knock enemies into pits. Because there are those bottomless pits that, like, if you knock something off of the edge, if you knock it back with some sort of effect, then it will just die automatically. And so maybe I wasn't getting experience for that, but I had backup strategies of just being able to, like, get one enemy isolated from everything else, corner them, activate my regeneration totem, and then just wail on them until they keeled over. It's It's a lot. It's very memey. It feels like a massive troll strategy, but it works. And tomorrow on stream, I'm going to try my best. We're recording this on Monday. My Tuesday stream is going to be me trying to beat the game, having never used weapons. It's a lot. It's super fun, and I'm really, really excited about it because once again, this highlights a different approach to playing this game, another way you can have fun with it, and the fact that this is even possible in the first place shows how well they've thought through some of the stuff in this game, like how varied some of the approaches to combat are. I don't know if they intended for you to be able to, one-punch your way through this game, but you can, and I'm doing my best. We'll see how the final boss goes, though.
Something dawned on me watching the video on your YouTube channel that was just how fun it looked because of the increased speed of punching. Like, even though you're only doing the 1 damage, the sheer fury of how fast you punch,
it's
having
great.
having just died twice, being unable to complete the Fiery Forge because I ran out of time, dying in a one shot to the Necromancer, a little frustrated to watch somebody play the game and just wail on stuff.
Yes,
again, you're a death by 1,000 cuts, but it just looks so satisfying.
It is very cathartic, let me tell you.
And it makes me, two things come to mind. One, it makes me want to try a rogue build where I use daggers or use sickles and just kind of, like you said, go speed. Like just speed enchants, speed synergy, worry less about how much damage I'm doing per blow and more about like, well, how quickly can I fight them? Because something that you mentioned, which was a great tip for new people to the game in your video, is that stun locking. When you're punching an enemy or attacking an enemy, depending on how quickly you do that, you might be able to keep them in a constant state of being punched and being unable to hit you back.
Yeah, it interrupts their attack animation.
Yeah. So that's what I do when I have a slow weapon like a glaive or a hammer. I shoot a bow first. I do a quick point blank, boom, shot with the bow, which sends them one kickback, but also does a little bit of this interrupt animation, and then you can hit them with the other thing, and it usually is enough that you can get them down and out, especially on those bigger enemies that require like 5 or 6 hits even at later levels.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the other thing that dawned on me is that I'm surprised that there's no fist weapons.
There are. Joel.
Oh,
I'm here to tell you that there are. And that is the cool thing, because from what I understand, they are only available on adventure difficulty, but you can get gauntlets that are effectively like, bare knuckle glove type weapons that do increase your melee damage. So here's what I'm thinking. If I can complete the entire game on like basic normal default difficulty and beat the final boss and start adventure mode and get to the level where you can get those items, I'm going to be able to punch my way all the way through Apocalypse. And I want to do a stream at some point that is called Bare Fist Steve versus the Apocalypse, and we will see how far we get. But it's a lot of fun, and I agree with you. The kind of, it feels really satisfying just punching stuff super fast, and I've been chasing all of the stuff in this game that feels fun and satisfying to do, and this is somehow one of the most satisfying experiences I've found in this game so far. And it is a phenomenal game. I'm really enjoying it. Like, once again, it's not breaking the mold as far as dungeon crawlers go. People were...
But you don't want it to. That's the thing. You don't want it to.
People were wondering why they hadn't kind of reinvented the wheel, and I was like, well... there's wheels roll for a reason,
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not like they could have added, like, crafting elements into it to make it more like Minecraft, or they could have, allowed you to break blocks, but then that breaks the geometry of the level, and, you can just enjoy this for what it is, I think, and boy, are we enjoying
it. Yeah, I think the RNG is really where they've taken it to a different spot. I know that in Diablo, like, you can pick up weapons and they're going to have certain enchants on them, and you can use gems and things like that. But for me, it's this cool combination of, like, you might have this unique item that you've picked up that's like this cool glowy bow and it does all this stuff. And the very next thing you pick up could be a regular bow. And just because it has 2 enchants on it, or the ability to have 2 enchants, and what those enchants are and the combination of it might make it better than the thing that you just picked up. Like, you just don't know. And I think that's a really cool mechanic, in that the way that they do the enchant system and the way that they randomize not only the enchants, but also the number of enchants that you can get, combined with the different weapons, combined with the different artifacts that you have. Like, the possibilities are literally endless, and I think that will keep it fresh. And I think that is, to me, what separates it from other dungeon crawlers experience. I'm telling you, I'm spending 20 minutes between playing a level and the next one, hanging with my chat in Twitch and going in the camp and basically not min-maxing, but like making decisions as to how we want to play, what we think will work best for the next level, and what we want to keep and what we want to enchant and how we want to roll forward. And it's fun. That part of the game, even though you're not punching anything, is fun.
I reckon that's a great note to leave it on as well. And folks, if you are a warrior over the apocalypse, or if you're just starting out Minecraft Dungeons, we want to hear from you. Joel will have the email address for you once again in a second, but that is going to be it for this episode of The Spawn Chunks. You can find more information about the show and links to some of the stuff we talked about today at thespawnchunks.com. The music for the show was composed by me, and The Spawn Chunks is proud to be a listener-supported podcast. If you get some value out of the show, why not consider putting some value back in? Chuck us a few emeralds at patreon.com/thespawnchunks, where joining the community by pledging at any level will get you an invite to our patrons-only Discord chat and get us closer to our next goal, which is going back to recording the episodes live in Discord so that all of our patrons can listen in. We're at 178 patrons right now, which is up from last week. Thank you guys once again for your continued support. And special thanks go out to our content engineer patrons, Cameron Sigelski, Greener Canuck, JD Williamson, Yakov Nastin, and Yitz for your support on this episode.
One of the things I really like about our Discord right now is how hoppin' the Minecraft Dungeons channel is and how respectful everyone is being of spoilers. I think it's fantastic. You can go in there and feel safe and get tips and just learn some stuff and not feel like it's going to be, too much. So tip of my hat to everybody having some fun in the Discord. Sharing the podcast with your friends is the easiest way to support the show. It's 100% free. Just find us on Twitter and Instagram at The Spawn Chunks. Personal recommendation is by far the best way to share the podcast with friends, though. Just tell a friend, hey, they're into dungeons, we're into dungeons, we should all be in the dungeons. Sounds creepy, but honestly, it's a lot of fun. Check out the podcast. You can email the show at spawnchunkmail@gmail.com. You can subscribe on iTunes, Android, Stitcher, and Spotify. We're also on YouTube. Leave a star rating and review on the Apple Podcast app. It's free. Even if you don't use the app as your main podcast platform, a lot of services draw from iTunes to pick up new podcasts. Using a quick rating helps us find new listeners on the platform. The RSS feed is linked on thespawnchunks.com, and the patron-only RSS feed is on the Patreon page, which is where you can listen to the Render Distance, the extended version of the podcast.
My name is Johnny, but online I go by Pixelriffs. You can find most of what I do at youtube.com/Pixelriffs, where I do my Minecraft survival guide series, and you can also see the Way of the Barefist Steve begin to take shape. I also stream 3 days a week on Twitch, where I do behind-the-scenes work for the survival guide, and as of Tuesday, June 2nd, I may hopefully have beaten Minecraft Dungeons without using weapons. I'm also the voice of the unofficial Hermitcraft recap, which you can find through a quick YouTube search. And aside from that, I'm at Pixelriffs on both Twitter and Instagram. Joel, where can people find you online?
Everything I'm doing online, including my illustration and design portfolio, is at joelduggan.com. If you're interested in hiring me, then just drop me a line there. You can also find a link there to the Citadel Cafe, which is my other podcast about sci-fi and fantasy entertainment. Mentioned quite a bit about this in the Render Distance, but myself and servermate Alistair hung out for a special anniversary edition of the Citadel Cafe where we talked about Back to the Future, the trilogy. It turns 30 years old this past week, and so we had a lot of fun talking about that. You can follow me at Joel Duggan on social media, super easy to find, and I will, of course, point you towards twitch.tv/Joel Duggan, where I am playing a lot of dungeons. Glaive for the win.
Thanks for visiting the Spawn Chunks. The world outside is infinite. Have fun storming the castle!